Greetings, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about monsters. Not just any monsters, but monsters that you love and monsters that you're just simply tired of. For example, which monsters would you remove from the game of Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder if you could? Just sweep them away so they would disappear forever. The monsters you are just tired of. You don't want them anymore. They are just passé and old hat, and you're just sick of them. On the other side of the coin, what are monsters you put into every single campaign? No matter what it is, you make sure that those monsters show up. Alright, so I want your answers to those two questions. Now, my answers to those two questions are, as far as the removing question, I would get rid of demons and devils. I find them boring as all get out. They take up huge quantities of space in every monster manual that's ever been printed, and it's just tedious and dull. And they are so deeply set into the Judeo-Christian Western tradition, the desert traditions, that I just don't think they have a place in a multi-pantheon style campaign. Now, there are demons from other traditions, other cultures and things, and they are a little more flavorful for me, and they're a little more interesting. But the classic demons and devils, as presented in everything from the first edition Monster Manual all the way up to the present. I have a cat, sorry, playing with something next to me. I just find them boring as all get out. I can't remember the last time I used one and enjoyed it. I mean, I've used them because they were in modules or because it made sense for a particular character build. So I was kind of catering to the needs of the character. But it wasn't something that I wanted to do. In fact, the last time I really used a demon in an interesting manner was when I used a demon in a Gamma World campaign, where there was actually a rift between the dimensions beginning to grow thin, and the player character's job was to make sure that rift closed and a demon did not enter a world that did not have magic in it. So those are the things I would erase. Now, what are the monsters I would make sure that in every single campaign? Well, of course, we're going to be obvious and say dragons. They're in every campaign. It's the game, it's the name, so yes, there are going to be dragons there. But that's not what I'm talking about. For me, it's flumps. I love flumps. From the first time I ever laid eyes on them in the Fiend Folio, which I still have, my original first printing of the Fiend Folio, I love the flump. And I've used them in every campaign, including every Game War campaign I've ever run. I love them so much. Now, I tend to run flumps as interdimensional beings. That flumps can move from dimension to dimension with the same ease I walk into the room next door. I walk into my laundry room, and that's as much effort as it takes a flump from go to one dimension to another. And one of the things I've used is that there's actually only one pod of flumps. One genetic pool of flumps. But they move from place to place, slipping into one dimension and back into the home dimension where the player characters are, with such rapidity that people have assumed that they are actually an international type of monster, but it's actually the only one pod of these creatures moving from place to place. I also really like what the Pathfinder did with the Monsters Revisited book that dealt with flumps. That was quite interesting. Not necessarily something I would use directly, but interesting nonetheless. I never got to use them in the last major campaign I ran because the campaign shifted in a way that it just wasn't appropriate, but I had planned on using them as interdimensional transportation for the player characters. Essentially, they would ride the flumps with the flump permission. Flumps are fully sapient in my game. I think they're fully sapient in the standard edition. I'm not positive, but they are in my game. I've also used flump-like creatures, floating kind of disc-like creatures that fly around and are used as transportation to one degree or another in Game World campaigns. I think I stole that idea from someplace. I can't remember where. They had eyes around their edges. And they didn't really have tentacles. They used some other method for acquiring food. I can't remember what it was. But I know I did use them. I'm also really enamored of aberrations in general I like aberrations. I like the Lovecraftian creatures. I love aboleths. Aboleths are awesome. I think they're a really good top tier monster at the end of a powerful campaign or a powerful storyline with high level characters. Aboleths are awesome. But I like mind flayers to a certain lesser degree. I like beholders. I like a lot of the classic chimera type monsters or fusion type monsters where you have creatures that are 2 or 3 different things shoved together. And of course, I'm a big fan of anthropomorphic creatures and the monstrous humanoids, which to my mind are cousins to the aberrations. So those are the things I always put in every campaign. And of course, I mean, there are staples, giants and ogres and humanoids, but they're everywhere because you need to have them as low-level opponents for characters to give them something to gain levels with. And of course, humans and what have you also make great low-level opponents as bandits and what have you, enemy soldiers, stuff like that. But I'm a big fan of aberrations, and in my mind, the best aberration of them all is the flump. So, tell me, what would you get rid of, and what do you include in every single campaign because you just love it so